What's up, Gator Nation? Zach Abolverdi and Nick Torre here, and it is Florida-LSU week. I know you guys are ready for this rivalry game. We're ready for it. We're ready for this trip to NOLA and then to Baton Rouge for a Saturday night kickoff in Death Valley. My first time experiencing it as a reporter. We'll get right into the matchup this week. I don't know how much you guys we vented pretty well after the game.
You got us on the rapid reaction for Arkansas. We burned the game film, Zach. Burn the game film.
It's time to turn the page as Billy did on Monday. Not trying to talk about Arkansas anymore. He wanted LSU questions.
He got one.
You guys can get your LSU questions in with Matthew Brune from the Bengal Tiger of the On3 Sports Network. He's going to join us to kick off the show as we talk about this matchup and the Gators trying to avoid what could be a losing streak to end the season and what is currently a 4-game losing streak to the Tigers. And a tall task for Florida headed to Baton Rouge against a very potent offense led by Jaden Daniels, although his status this week we'll find out more from. Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. Before we do, I want to give a shout out to Bird Dogs, as we do at the top of every show. And they've certainly been keeping us rocking a bunch of different gear this season. And I definitely encourage you guys to go to birddogs.com/Gators or use the promo code Gators for a free Hydro Flask style water bottle with your purchase. You could get the hat, you could get the polos, you could get the khaki shorts, the pants. They've got a lot that you can check out. And we've added it all to our wardrobe, especially the shorts, designed to fit slimmer, doing the same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better than regular shorts. The polo is one of my personal favorites, and I know Nick, he's got that hat, that Bird Dogs hat in steady rotation. So definitely encourage you guys to go and check that out at birddogs.com and use that promo code /Gators. Now let's get into this matchup, Florida-LSU, as we bring in Matthew Brune from the Bengal Tiger. Matthew, appreciate you joining us today, man. How's it going?
I'm doing great. I actually have the Bird Dog shorts on right now.
Let's go.
I won't stand up and show y'all, but yeah, shout out Bird Dogs.
You got the Bird Dog shorts. You got the On3 shirt. You coming correct today, man.
Yeah,
Company man.
Company man. But yeah, thank y'all for having me. This is I look forward to this game. This is gonna be a lot of fun.
This is one of my favorite rivalries. I think it used to be a rivalry of respect, mutual respect on the fan base, and then that hurricane game came, and it was you're afraid to play us. No, you're afraid to play us, and nobody's afraid to play football, bro. And it's kind of gotten nasty. We'll see how long they continue playing. Once the SEC figures out scheduling, but this is a game I look forward to. In a series, Zach, I don't know if people here want to listen to this, but a series that LSU has dominated.
Yeah,
13 the last 20, 8 of the last 10. So we'll see. Weird things happen. We don't have Les Miles eating grass over on the other sideline, faking kicks going forward on fourth, but weird things happen in this series. Florida will be an underdog in Death Valley for a night game. It'll be my third night game in Death Valley. That place is special.
I can't wait.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, no fog with shoes being thrown.
There might be fog. We might throw shoes. Who knows?
Honestly, I haven't looked at the forecast. I have no clue. It could be 30-mile-per-hour winds for all I know. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, there might be a swarm of mosquitoes. Who knows?
Listen, for this matchup, you never know what's going to come through.
Exactly.
Well,
Matthew, before we get into the game, just tell fans about Tiger Stadium. I'm sure you've been to plenty of games. What is the difference? Because I think I've been to everywhere except for Georgia. I don't know that I'll ever get there covering the Gators in Auburn. But to me, Florida and LSU have the two best game day environments inside the stadium. What's the difference between a noon kickoff and a 6:30 p.m. kickoff in Death Valley?
Yeah, it's significant. I think what was it, a couple years ago, 2021, when LSU and Florida played at, was that an 11 a.m. kickoff or 2:30? One of the two.
Yeah, it's 11 a.m.
11 a.m. Yeah, it was early. To be fair though, that was the best home environment of that entire season because LSU was awful that year. But for some reason, showed up for the Florida game where Ty Davis Price rushed for like 300 yards.
Seems to happen a lot where teams show up when Florida comes to town.
It was like, yeah, they have no chance of winning this game. It's like, oh, there he goes. All right, Ty Davis Price. But yeah.
And then the next week he was held like for under 100 yards, I think.
There's nothing. But
Running counter, baby. Running counter.
Tiger Stadium at night is, like you said, it's really something special. I mean, I was at Alabama last week, and it's such a different experience, at Alabama where it's, more like the light shows, the aesthetics, the sounds better, I guess, at Alabama. Tiger Stadium, it's kind of just, it's all fans. Like the lighting you can complain about, the scoreboard's not huge, nothing like that, but it's 103,000 people packed in there. And I didn't notice this until, obviously you start going to more stadiums and you realize it, but Tiger Stadium actually is very much like the stands are on straight up almost.
Yeah.
Like, you go to Bama and
that's what they share with Florida and LSU. It's kind of the sidelines are tight based on where the fans are, and it kind of goes up. Even when you go to, and I think Neyland Stadium's great in Tennessee, but it's the same thing where it kind of bows out like a professional stadium almost.
Yeah, so that surprised me about Bama's was it is very much like that. But so it gets loud. I mean, if anybody's been to college football, knows how loud it can get. But it's very much a tangible feeling when you're in there.
I can't wait.
Two great environments.
Well, before we get into LSU season and kind of what to expect from the Tigers, Matthew, we got some folks in the comment section. Shout out Jim Martin because this was going to be my first question to Matthew. So I'm right where you're at, Jim. What is the latest on Jaden Daniels and the quarterback situation for LSU?
Yeah, yesterday, Brian Kelly's going to go talk at 5 o'clock Central Time today, so we'll get a more concrete update. But on Wednesday morning, did the SEC teleconference and said Daniels, basically passed all the tests for, concussion protocol and whatnot. It felt like the game on Saturday, they held him out more out of, concern or more out of caution than anything. But yeah, he passed those tests. He was cleared to do non-contact stuff on Tuesday and Wednesday. Said he was running over 20 miles per hour, so he's moving fine. And then Thursday would be the day for him where he would have to go through full practice and everything and see how he looked there. So we'll get a concrete update in less than 2 hours. So yeah, you can probably find that on Twitter or on our site. But at the moment,
what's your gut feel?
I'd say he plays. I would say he plays. This is a dude who, if he doesn't have a concussion, he's going to go play. I mean, the Missouri game was arguably the best game of his season, where he had a bruised rib early in the third quarter and went on to rush for 100 more yards and single-handedly beat Missouri. I mean, this dude is about as tough as nails. And I don't know if y'all have seen all the hits he's taken over the year, just getting crushed, but he pops right back up.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned obviously, this matchup the last time that there was a quarterback in question because of a concussion. It was Tebow back in 2009 coming off that hit that he took against Kentucky. And I think the bye week that Florida had was before LSU. That's
right before LSU, yeah.
Which is odd because was that back when they had 2 bye weeks?
No, they didn't have 2 bye weeks
before Georgia that year.
Florida and Georgia both didn't have bye weeks before each other. Whenever they started doing that, they made sure both teams had bye weeks. But
that was any other year Tebow doesn't play the next week against LSU probably. But that may have been the last time Florida won a night game in Death Valley, wasn't it?
I haven't beat LSU much, Zach. Haven't beat LSU much.
In 2017, that was a noon game. So I think that might have been. I think you're right, Patrick.
Sign Patrick up for Gators Online Show, fact checker and historian.
Well, obviously, Matthew, LSU coming off of a really successful year one under Brian Kelly. They opened the season, once again with a loss against Florida State, and they've obviously had some tough losses on the road in SEC play in the West Division, but they've also been very, very impressive on offense. Had some struggles on defense, but have played well at times too. Just your kind of overview of where this Tigers team is at and maybe how they've played compared to your expectations going into the year.
Yeah, expectations going into the year. I think most LSU fans had him in that 10-win range, 10 to 11 wins in the regular season, which is obviously optimistic. Vegas had it at 9.5. So, you hope you can get to 10 wins in a regular season. And but I do think the year one success maybe accelerated expectations and what is and was a rebuild for Brian Kelly. Took over a team from Ed Orgeron that was very, very scattered, very just the cupboard was bare, not a lot of talent. Obviously, you bring in transfers like Jaden Daniels and so on and so forth, and it works, and they get to the SEC title game. And last year's team was really solid, really balanced. They go into year two, and like you said, the offense has been fantastic. I mean, based on statistics, it's the best offense in the country. Them and Washington pretty much are battling out there, but LSU is a much more balanced rush attack with their run game and Logan Diggs and Jaden Daniels. So yeah, the offense is fantastic, over 45 points per game. The defense, you were kind of nice when you talked about it, the ups and downs. It's been a lot more downs than ups. You have the games against Mississippi State where they hold the team to 14 points.
I mean, they played well recently against Army and Auburn.
Army, Auburn, Mississippi State. Those are the three games, and all three of those teams, especially Mississippi State,
high-octane offenses there.
I mean, especially Mississippi State early in the year, that was a team that was running the ball like 70% of the time under Zach Arnett and that, Zach Barbay. So it's three offenses that were really one-dimensional, and LSU's talent was kind of enough to just stop the run and go play from there. Whenever they've played a competent offense or at least a semi-balanced offense, it's been very, very troublesome. Florida State, Arkansas, Ole Miss, obviously 55 points, Missouri, and Alabama. So yeah, it's one of the worst defenses in the SEC, and they lose Mekhi Wingo probably for the season, all SEC defensive lineman, and Greg Brooks is battling brain cancer right now. So wish the best for him, but he was a captain going into the year as well, their best DB. So yeah, that's probably the overview, just quick pitch on LSU going into this one.
It's been interesting to watch because LSU has recruited really well, but you've got like 2 5-star safeties having to play outside corner. Are you seeing some growth and development? But like, that's not your position, and you're going to be asked to do a lot of different things as a safety than you are as a corner. How much has that kind of played into LSU's defensive struggles? Obviously, everyone's tied together. You're not getting a pass rush; it's harder to cover, and vice versa.
Yeah, no, it's the cornerback. I mean, really, the entire secondary has been the biggest problem for LSU. But like you said, it's all complementary. But at the end of the day, LSU took 4 cornerbacks coming into the year. Took Denver Harris, who was a former 5-star at Texas A&M, got dismissed from A&M. LSU takes a flyer on him. He hasn't worked out, on and off with the team, still on scholarship. They took Deuce Chestnut, a former all-ACC corner out of Syracuse. He's not traveling, not practicing with the team anymore. And then took J.K. Johnson got hurt before the year started. There's so many defensive backs. J.K. Johnson before the year and got injured, hasn't played a snap. And then they return LaTerrence Welsh, who you kind of hoped would take a step forward. And then the other transfer corner, Zy Alexander, FCS All-American from Southeastern Louisiana. And he was playing really well. And then in the Army game, gets an interception right before half, goes to return it, tries to make a cut. And I don't want to speculate because I don't think we know the exacts of his injury, but it's, basically the knee didn't look good when that happened. Sure. So he's pretty much probably out for the year, if not a long time. So all 4 of those guys are gone. Like you said, they've gone to Sage Ryan and Javian Toviano basically as their corners in the Alabama game, 2 5-star or high 4-star, 5-star safeties. And they're just going to try to hold up. But the entire secondary has been very rough, to the point where, Harold Perkins is out there playing Sam/nickel outside linebacker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, get my guy who should have 20 sacks a season. Get him some nickel reps. Billy Napier's looking to do play call, looking to like get his defense or his offensive game plan ready. He's like, man, if we can just get Harold Perkins play nickel, we might be able to keep Graham Mertz clean today.
Yeah, exactly. So that's been a ongoing thing since the Florida State game. Is his pass rush to coverage snaps, reps are. He has more coverage snaps than he does pass rush snaps this year. That's
No.
Been an interesting.
The ratio of that should be 90-10, 95-5.
Yeah, even if that gets into a whole different pile of worms there, but
How much time do we have?
Yeah, but even if you contend that Harold's going to have to play more linebacker at the next level, you still as an LSU team need to win games and need to figure out how to get pressure on the quarterback. And the jack linebacker spot, the outside linebacker spot that blitzes all the time has been very underwhelming for LSU this year. They brought in Ovia Gofu from Texas, brought in Braden Swinson from Oregon. They're average players. They're not Harold Perkins or BJ Ojolari. So yeah.
Now, Matthew,
well, I know a defensive coordinator in the SEC that wouldn't mind having him to replace Princey Wimielen when he leaves. If Harold wants less coverage snaps, and that's a coaching staff that definitely recruited him out of high school.
You say that, Nick, and Billy was extra complimentary of Harold this week. So you may be on to something.
Always be recruiting, Zach.
Always be recruiting.
What podcast am I on? Am I allowed to be on this podcast while Harold Perkins is getting recruited away? I
don't. Matthew, obviously LSU's done so many things well. They're first in almost all the major categories, I think, in the SEC, and they rank top 10 in most of them. I think the only one is rushing offense that they don't lead, and they're number 2. So they've been elite. Where are the holes, if any, on offense? Where have they been tripped
holes
up?
in the helmet that allow ventilation?
Those are there. I don't think that's going to help Armstrong's defense.
No.
But where can they try to maybe attack them or play to their weaknesses to try to get some stops defensively?
I truly don't know the answer to that. Alabama did a good job. I thought LSU would have trouble running the ball against Bama, just because Bama's front's really intimidating and really talented. And sure enough, Logan Diggs only ended with 3 yards per carry, but Jaden Daniels ran all over Bama. So it's kind of like the run game gets going no matter where it's from. It's either Daniels or Diggs, and they've been able to do that against everybody. So I would say trying to take the run game away would be number 1, which Florida State actually did a pretty good job of week 1. But the pass game has been so dynamic. I mean, Daniels has found Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. just consistently on deep balls, intermediate balls, and he leads the country, or he's second in the country in yards per attempt. He's just completing passes and completing them for big gains usually. So I trust the offensive line. Mason Taylor at tight ends, borderline all conference probably. I would say it starts up front. You have to stop the run, but other than that, it's tough. It's a tough task to stop this LSU offense.
Jaden Daniels is just so dynamic as a runner that you have to spy him. And then if you're spying him, now you're playing 11 hats on 11 hats, which helps the running game, which probably then puts, I don't know if anyone's crazy enough to put man coverage on Malik Neighbors or has done it successfully. But you've got Thomas, Neighbors, Taylor, running backs, and it doesn't seem like Jaden Daniels scrambles for yards or scrambles for 7. It seems like when he runs, it's 10, 15, 20, 30 at a time.
Yeah, that's what really kills defenses is you think you've got Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas locked down, and if you're bracketing them or whatever you're doing with the safeties, and then the linebackers have to take the tight ends, running backs, and then it just opens up for Daniels to just get running. And so that's the real hard part, and that's why Daniels, ran for 140 yards against Bama, something like that, to where the offensive line is good enough to where it's not caving early. It's not forcing him out of the pocket in uncomfortable spots. He's usually running on his own accord because he sees things and he sees the field real well.
Florida's had trouble tackling quarterbacks like that. Go back to Travis. Last year they played Florida State, KJ Jefferson. So that's an issue that has to be priority number one. But certainly way easier for me and you to sit here and talk about tackling Jaden Daniels than it is to actually do it there at Valley. One more thing about the offense, just it's been so dynamic. I guess you mentioned FSU had some success. I think Arkansas had a little bit of success if you count like holding LSU to 30 points as like I guess it is a successful day holding LSU to 34. Is it just really like, can you make LSU one-dimensional? You've got such dynamic weapons in the passing game, and the running game is strong. Is that a recipe to try to beat LSU? Like, hey, make Jaden Daniels beat us with his arm, which I think he can do and has shown that he can do.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you would want to make him a pocket quarterback, stop the run, the conventional run on early downs, because this is the best. I mean, at least going into Bama, it was, I don't know what it is now, but it was the best first down offense in the country and the best third down offense in the country. So they're getting into comfortable situations. They're converting on third downs. You got to stop them on early downs. You have to take away some of the comfortable passes he makes. I know against Arkansas, there was one, he had an interception early that kept Arkansas in it, where it was like an option route, and him and the tight end were on a different page. So he kind of threw a pick there. If he's seeing the field well, if he's on the same page with his receivers, he's usually able to link up. So I would say, yeah, you got to make him uncomfortable, get him into second, third and longs, and kind of just, hope he misses a ball or hope there's a blown block or something.
Florida played a style and had a game plan against Tennessee. You'll remember this, that we sat here before the Tennessee game and we thought Florida cannot score with Tennessee. You're going to have to try to bleed the clock out. Much easier said than done, and much easier at home than on the road. But I wonder, I don't think Florida is going to outscore LSU if we're talking a game in the 40s, which LSU, I think, might score 60. If we're talking about a game in the 40s, I don't think Florida wins that game. I wonder if they have a Florida Tennessee type of game plan where it's like, hey, we're going to have to get ahead of the sticks, stay ahead of the sticks, create third and manageables, and try to get 9, 10, 11, 12 play drives that eat up 5-6 minutes of clock. We'd like LSU to have 7 offensive possessions possible in the entire game, and they still might score 42.
Yeah, that's I'm interested in that because LSU's defense typically has allowed some big plays, has allowed plenty of chunk yardages. So the offense usually comes right back on the field whenever they get off it. So I'm, Missouri, Ole Miss outscored them. I mean, you look at the games LSU's lost, obviously that's 3 top 10 teams all on the road. And so it's, that was their gauntlet, kind of those 3 games going into the year. You knew those would be the losable ones, and they've lost all of them, which, LSU fans, that's not good enough, but those are tough games on the road. So they all scored over 40. All of them exploited the defensive weaknesses. I do think Florida has the offensive ability to kind of score points and at least make this very uncomfortable for LSU's offense or LSU.
And on that note, Matthew, and then we'll get you out of here. I asked you where potentially the holes or weaknesses for LSU offensively. On the defensive side, they've struggled, and the stats don't look good. Where are some of the areas that they have excelled and done some things well that Florida's got to be mindful of?
Yeah, good. That's a much easier question than where are the holes, because you can go almost the whole depth chart. I think LSU against Missouri in the second half showed a positive growth there in some of their coverages and just how they were able to play the ball and how they were able to slow down Burden and Cook. We talked about it, but Auburn, Army, and Grambling, those are all one-dimensional teams that if you don't have a balanced offense and if you don't have a good quarterback play, then LSU's defense is good enough and talented enough to really bother you. I look at Florida as having, obviously Graham Mertz is playing very well, they have good running backs. I think Florida has enough balance to score points on LSU. But I also know, Florida's maybe shot itself in the foot at times to where it could take a sack or TFL. So that's going to be interesting to me. Is LSU is not a team that creates havoc. It's not a team that can create turnovers at a high rate. But
the really thing they've only done well looks like is getting interceptions.
They've got interceptions, yeah. I mean, honestly, if you ask me like their most important interceptions of the year, I'm not sure I could name them because at all 3 losses, it hasn't felt like they've gotten a turnover. I don't know if they've gotten a turnover in Florida State, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Definitely not Ole Miss, where gosh, there were so many points.
We were watching the game in Lexington. That game was incredibly fun to watch. The bar with some drinks, and it was just like, oh man, LSU forgot how to defense. But this offense, man, exciting.
I'll say in theory, the strength of this defense is I do like Harold Perkins, even though he's not pass rushing enough, he's so damn good. He can kind of just blow up plays on his own. Like if he's on that side of the field at nickel or Sam, and if there's a screen his way or run his way, anything going that way, he has a good chance of blowing it up. So that's a positive. The secondary, I think at this point knows what it is and knows what it can and can't do. And so at that point, you kind of saw it. I think against Alabama, it actually held up at a decent level. It was more of Milroe's legs that beat them. If you can not give up the explosive play, make teams work on consistent basis, that's comfortable. And then overall, I think the run defense isn't a total weakness at this point. Against Alabama, I know Jace McClellan ran for like 4 yards. Roydell Williams came in the second half, was pretty good, but overall, not a lot of positives. I'm not going to lie to y'all. I expect Florida to be able to score some points here.
It's interesting because the last time that Florida traveled to LSU, it was a shootout with kind of the Anthony Richardson coming out party. And I think that for Florida to have a chance in this game, that's probably what it's going to have to be. I don't know if LSU has a more losable game left on its schedule than Florida. They closed the regular season against Texas A&M at home.
You don't believe in Texas A&M? You're not a Texas A&M believer?
Yeah. I think if they're going to take another L, it's probably going to be here.
It's
and if it did, it would knock LSU out of the top 25.
For sure.
What would a loss like this, how would that impact the LSU program just in year 2 under Kelly? Going from potentially, a playoff contender coming into the year to out of the top 25 if they lose this game, obviously this is an important game for Florida, but it's kind of important for LSU to get back right on the season on track.
Yeah, it would be the first loss this year where, like I said, the other 3 losses are to Ole Miss, Florida State, and Alabama on the road. And I know Florida State is technically a neutral game. I was there. That is a 90+% Florida State crowd in Orlando. That was a road game. And it was loud. So you lose those 3 games on the road. This would be the first sign of, all right, we lost to a team we're favored against significantly, lost the game at home this year. It would ring alarms that haven't previously, been rang before, at least not this year. Last year it was year 1. There were positives, even the loss to A&M, which was bad to end the year last year. It was on the road. They've been mostly a really solid team at home. And so it would be pretty alarming. I mean, you think last year off the top of my head, got blown out by Tennessee at home, but Tennessee was really damn good. And they started that game awful. So beat Alabama at home, beat Ole Miss at home last year. So typically they've been a good home team. I do think a loss here would be very, very hard for LSU fans to swallow.
Well, I know Florida fans appreciated you joining us, man, and kind of giving us your take on the Tigers and kind of where they're at. Look, this is still a very potent team despite the recent loss. Like you said, I mean, everybody that they've taken an L to has been a top 10 team. So it's the opportunity for them to get back on track and for Florida to try and they need an upset one of these last 3 weeks. To me, this is probably the toughest one of the 3 left. So
who is it after LSU and Missouri?
They got to go to Missouri, and then they get Florida State at home.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I mean, I
guess
guess
3 ranked teams in a playoff contender to finish the year.
About that one. Yeah.
I still think their chances might be better against FSU at home than they are against LSU on the road at night in Death Valley. But
Is Missouri on the road?
Yep.
Yeah, Missouri's on the road too. 7:30.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I like Missouri. Missouri's offense is obviously great.
It's very good.
No, yeah,
So
it's
is
great.
so is LSU's, and so is Florida State.
It is.
Yeah, Matthew, the chance for a bowl game really was fumbled last week against a 2-6 Arkansas team. That's what we've been dealing with here.
You know, maybe the Missouri game. I think maybe Missouri is culpable to maybe dropping one somewhere. We'll see.
That's probably if a road win is going to come for Florida in the next 2 weeks, it's probably in Columbia and not Baton Rouge. But we'll see.
Good. We got 30 more minutes to hype the game up.
Yeah,
we let them down easy.
we don't give our predictions on the show, so
okay.
Don't listen too much into
Don't go anywhere.
All right, Matthew, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us once again, and we'll see you in the press box, bud.
Yeah. See y'all then. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely,
Thanks,
man. Take care.
Sure.
Matthew Brune from the Bengal Tiger, giving us the latest on where things are at. He says that Jaden Daniels, it looks like, is going to play, Nick, and so that's not good news for the Gators.
Listen, buddy, Jaden Daniels is going to get his, but if I can.
I mean, but that's what they would have needed would be like that.
But hear me out.
Like how Brock Bowers didn't play for Georgia, and it was like, well, there's Florida's chance.
Like I said on our show, Brock Bowers doesn't play defense, and Florida still has to score points. But hear me out. I think you can stomach losing to LSU and Jaden Daniels. He's a Heisman hopeful. He's a Heisman hopeful. Could Florida fans stomach losing to Doug Nussmeier's son?
That would cut deep.
If Garrett Nussmeier led LSU to a win over Florida, I think that could break the fan base. Hey, just if you're going to lose the game, let it be to Jaden Daniels, who's having an incredible season. Losing to Doug Nussmeier's son after the way he was treated here and the offenses he had in Gainesville, don't know if that's the way Florida fans want to go out.
I tell you what, Nick, I know you, and I know that you would never root against a player's health, but I think deep down you were kind of hoping that storyline could come to fruition this week because you would have had the preview ready.
Jesus, no. Listen, we've been through a lot this season, Zach. Been through a lot. I don't know if we want, if we need or want that at all.
Doug Nussmeier headlines for the LSU week. That'd have been, as the kids say, tough. Well, let's get into the back half of this show and kind of give you guys our keys to the game and how the Gators pull off this upset in Baton Rouge, because certainly that's their intent going into this matchup. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to My Perfect Franchise. If you are ready to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, looking for a side hustle while working your current job, wanting to diversify, build wealth, and or leave a legacy, Andy can help. Andy is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, financial requirements, time to commit, and more. Services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have questions about business ownership with franchises. You can learn more and contact Andy anytime at myperfectfranchise.net or calling or texting him at 404-973-9901. Nick, we kind of got into some of these with Matthew, but keys to the game on Saturday, what say you, my friend?
Well, like we talk about how bad LSU's defense is, and then you go and look at like statistically, they're right around Florida. So like, calm down when you're talking about how bad LSU's defense is as we throw stones in these glass houses we live in, Zach. Keys to the game, like you're not stopping Jaden Daniels. I think the best way to stop Jaden Daniels is with your offense and limiting the chances and the opportunities that LSU's offense has. They're going to get theirs. They're going to take what they want. It's Florida defense. I asked Billy Napier, and let's talk about this a little bit, Zach. I thought, hey, maybe I'm just making excuses for Florida, but like you're playing a lot of freshmen, which is good. And then at some point of the season, you're like, okay, well, they're not freshmen anymore. They've got, Jordan Costello's got more than 300 snaps this year. he's not a freshman anymore. But like physically, you're still a freshman. Mentally, this is the longest season you've ever played. Are Florida's young players maybe wearing down? Like you got here in January, and that was a big talking point. But you're playing against grown men, and you're still COVID grown men too. So now you're playing against 24-year-olds, 23-year-olds as an 18, 19-year-old kid. And I think when I see some of the players not finishing plays, there's arm tackles. Like, hey, I think Florida's just kind of wearing down right now. And I mentioned that to Billy Napier, and he kind of was like, no, well, maybe, I don't know. Good point. It was kind of like a weird interaction, weird answer to my question, because it was maybe something he hadn't thought about, but thought and maybe there's something there to that. Yeah. But also, if you say yes right away, you're probably throwing your strength coach under the bus, so you might not want to say yes to that.
Yeah, it's that was an interesting dynamic that they had going on, because I think that you look at Florida's starting lineup on Saturday, and they had 5 freshmen. Not all of them were first year players, but there was times on the field where they had 5 first year players on defense playing against the Hogs at some point. So when you got guys that young, especially in the front 7, as Billy alluded to at the end of his press conference on Wednesday, that's a lot to ask of young players. And the closer you get to the line of scrimmage, the harder it is to play. So they're going to take their lumps, especially against more physical teams and more physical players like a KJ Jefferson from Arkansas. But they get some guys back this week. That's certainly going to help. You got Tyreek Sapp returning, which I think is very key because of the season-ending injury to Jack Pyburn, unfortunately, who is going to be out for the last 3 games with the torn ACL. But you get Sapp back. Kelby Collins played really well against Arkansas. Cameron James played his most snaps of the season. So, even though you lose Jack, I think that there's still enough that you've gotten and seen from Kelby and Cameron that you can get through this last stretch of the season at that defensive end spot. And then certainly getting Cam Jackson back is huge. But they, at linebacker, because of the loss of Shamar James, those guys are going to have to play better than they did against Arkansas, point blank. And, I really like Jaden Robinson, and I love that he's getting the start and getting the experience, but he's going to make freshman mistakes at times, and he's going to have some growing pains and read some plays the wrong way. And that's just something that Florida's going to have to live with, like you said, Nick. But, at the same time, I think that Manny Nunnery is a guy that in this matchup, probably your best option in terms of trying to defend, in terms of asking your linebackers to go in coverage. So they got to find some ways to make some plays, on defense. It's something that we mark as a key every single week. Get some sacks, get some turnovers, cause some havoc, because that's one thing that they still haven't been able to do. They got a turnover last week against KJ Jefferson, which I had as one of the keys to the game. They got a pick, and they also got the forced fumble and scored on the next play. So they need more of that. I think certainly getting some sacks on Jaden, getting him in some negative situations and getting them off schedule so that they punt is going to be key. And then last but certainly not least, Nicholas, every single game that Florida has lost this season and other games, but specifically the games that they've lost, they have had a special teams blunder. Now, will that be significant in this game? Maybe not, but if it's competitive and Florida's in a shootout, then it will be. So play clean on special teams. Key to the game. Get 11 guys on the field, every special teams unit. Yeah.
I think you've given them those keys, Zach, and they change the locks every week. By the time Saturday rolls around, we got a new lock and the keys don't work. I did enjoy Billy's joke yesterday. He joked, it's tough to get 11 on the field. Seemingly it is. I don't.
He was in a much better mood Wednesday night than he was Monday.
Yeah. It certainly Wednesday. Yeah, but we'll see what kind of mood he's in the bowels of Tigers Stadium after Saturday. It's just a tough game. Shout out to me.
Go ahead.
Shout out to me. All credit to me back in June with my picks, 9-0. I picked this as a loss back in June, so probably a loss because I haven't been wrong in those June picks. It's a tough place to play. The way that Florida's defense has played versus the way that this LSU offense has played, not a favorable matchup. I struggle to find ways that Florida wins this game unless you can execute that game plan against Tennessee. And I think that first half against Tennessee was playing perfect, like damn near perfect, if not perfect.
I just don't think LSU goes as fast. And
they don't, but they're more explosive.
Yeah, and and they're also way more potent on offense. So
yeah,
it like Florida's success and their effectiveness against Tennessee also, along with Joe Milton and that unit just not being that productive, and certainly not to the level of a LSU, allowed Florida, as well as being at home, to be in that game and have success in that matchup.
It's limiting the offense for different reasons. Against Tennessee, I think my reasoning was you need to give your defense a breather because you're not going to be able to sub and it's going to be tough. It's limiting LSU's offense because we can't score 50 on the road. And if we give LSU 8, 9, 10 offensive drives, they're going to score 50. It's just the way that their offense has done it against some really good defenses that are better than Florida's this year. So I think it's the same game plan, but for different reasons, if that makes sense. You just need to limit LSU's opportunities to score because if their offense is on the field, right now it's probably better than a 50% chance that they are finding the end zone.
Yeah. Last thing, and then the last 5 minutes, as we usually do once we get to this time of year, we're starting a little early. We got to talk some UF hoops and fall ball before we get out of here.
Last 5 minutes of baseball, baby.
But let me ask you this. It's irrelevant, inconsequential this week. Florida needs to just try and play a complete game and get an upset. But what are the we know what the motivations are like for the guys from Louisiana on Florida's roster and what this matchup means, and they grew up LSU fans. Billy Napier did not. But he's obviously connected to this program and this state and this job at times. Just, there's some matchups and I think some games that mean more to coaches for different reasons because of the school that they're at or their history. Is this one, do you think, circled maybe a little bit more on Billy's schedule that he would never show anybody or talk about?
Yeah, I would say so.
I think he wants to win this one maybe more than anyone except Georgia because of Kirby.
Yeah, so like talking to Ross Dellinger and some other people, some reporters who have experienced ties, have worked in the state of Louisiana, I was like, hey, what would the fan reaction be if LSU hired Louisiana's coach? Is that like hiring little brother? And Ross said that'd be like hiring little sister. There's no love, there's no respect from LSU for the other Southeastern, from UL, from any of the other schools, Tulane. Yeah. It's just LSU. And I think if Billy Napier had been offered the LSU job, I don't know if he's Florida's head coach right now. So to some degree, you spent 4 years at Louisiana not getting the respect of the Florida fan base just because, not because of anything you were doing at Louisiana, just because it's UL, ULO, whatever it is. But I think for Jabbar Jalouk, who's from New Orleans, I think for Corey Raymond, who spent more than a decade, James got it, spent more than a decade at LSU, for Billy Napier, who spent a bunch of times.
Former LSU offensive lineman.
I think it's a game that might be personal to them, for sure. I don't know how much that helps you. I brought that point up that the game's deeply personal to a bunch of the guys on Georgia's staff. It also helps that you've got NFL talent across the board at every position. So it plays a factor. I don't think it makes you It's a prerequisite to be a coach. But yeah, I think if Billy was like Cam Jackson, I think this might have been a game like Billy and Cam both would have sent that tweet out, had this one circled, had this one ready to go. And certainly, Billy's got young kids. His wife will be, he said, missing the game. She's going to go hang out with some friends down in Lafayette on Saturday instead of going to the game. So
smart move.
It's definitely a personal game for them. They spent 4 years of their life in the state. So, yeah.
No doubt. Well, we are going to change gears here for the last 5 minutes and talk some hoops and Florida baseball. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Prairie Dental Center. The doctor is a UF grad who's practiced in Gainesville for 3 decades and has developed a deep understanding of how to diagnose and treat various dental problems, along with advanced skills and knowledge to provide more effective and efficient care to his patients. If you're having dental concerns or just need a cleaning, Prairie Dental Center offers a wide range of personalized care options to meet your individual needs. Give their office a call, 352-373-3431. Tell them Gators Online sent you, and your new patient exam will be free. And as we will start doing a lot moving forward, our Gator Sports Roundup, as we get into the other sports that we cover for Gators Online, and then, obviously any shout out to all the other UF sports on campus, anything notable happening with them. But obviously a noteworthy time for hoops, not just the men's, but the women's team both started their season and signed some recruits this week, as did a bunch of other UF programs. And shout out to Kelly Ray Finley signing a 5-star for the second straight year. And the highest rated recruit in program history. So trying to put UF women's basketball on the map, Nick, and that's what it's going to take.
On the map.
You need 5-star recruits to do it, just like any other sport.
To keep up with LSU, Kim Mulkey, and Dawn at South Carolina, I'm like, yeah, you're going to need 5-star recruits. Those are 2 programs that are some of the best in college basketball, and they're going to be teams that you have to play every year.
Well, speaking of basketball recruits, the Gators signed Isaiah Brown for the 2024 class. They also got a commitment for the 2024 class. You ready for this? 7'6" center for the Gators out of IMG Academy. Made his pledge. I think a lot of people expected him to go to Purdue, but 7'6" guy on his way.
Guinness Book of World Records, the world's tallest teenager.
Yeah. So shout out to Oliver making his pledge to the Gators, and he will be signing later on in this cycle. And then we'll see if they add any more pieces. Todd Golden and his staff, but I think a lot of portal players will probably come after the season. But right now, this thing's just gotten started. The Gators opened their season with a 93-73 win over Loyola, Maryland. And then they will be back in action Friday night against Virginia on ACC Network, 7 p.m. tip. So make sure you guys tune into that. That'll be definitely an important matchup early in the season for Golden and his squad. And a nice first impression for the new look Gators. They had a new starting lineup, new uniforms, brand new roster, basically. All 13 players on scholarship recruited by Todd Golden and his staff. So this is his team. The makeup of the roster and the personnel and kind of what they want to do is much more suited to his background and his attack. So the first game, 4 guys in double figures. It was good to see, Micah Hand-Logden and Alex Condon, 2 huge guys at center that are stretch 5s for sure. Both of them knocked down 2 3-pointers in that game. Riley Kugel goes off for 23 points, 6 steals, and a block. First Gator player to do that this century, and only the 4th SEC player in league history this century, according to Denver Parlor. So a good start for Golden's Gators. And again, the real tests start to come up, not only with Virginia on the slate, but Florida State as well. So, but definitely stay tuned to GatorsOnline.com. We will be covering both sports here these last 3 weeks of November and keeping you guys updated on everything going on with hoops. So, Nick, at the same time, fall ball going on, and I know they've been having some scrimmages and a lot of action going on there at Condren Family Ballpark.
Yeah, Florida has been going. This is, I'm going to admit, the World Series is going on right now, the first of 3 games. I just saw an update. Tyler Shellnut. I got Cole Shelton and Tyler Shellnut. I'm messing those two up. Tyler Shellnut, home run. So Florida will conclude fall ball practices. I think my opinion was like last year's team was so good. You lost a lot of those guys, Hurston Waldrop, Brandon Sproat, Josh Rivera, BT Riopel, some guy named Wyatt Langford. I don't know if anyone had heard of him. Lost a lot. I think you've gotten some portal guys to replace him. But this is a team that's going to rely a lot on their freshman pitchers. Liam Peterson's a guy who I really, really like. Not sure how he's even on campus. So it's going to be a new look team. I remember getting out there for the very first day of fall practice and being like, I need a roster. There are a lot of new faces out here and need a roster. So it's not Lions season about baseball yet, Zach. I'm not hyping them up yet, but it's been a good team to watch. I think they hit the ball out of the yard at a pretty cool clip. A lot of power and then a lot of power arms. So should be another good year. There aren't too many off years over at Condren, though.
No doubt. It's been nice. I got one of my sports reporting classes out there for a scrimmage a couple weeks ago. So shout out to Kevin O'Sullivan, shout out to Todd Golden, Kelly Ray as well, and all the UF sports teams starting up their seasons, and obviously all the ones that added some players to their program with signing day on Wednesday. So that'll do it for this week's episode. Appreciate Matthew Brune from the Bengal Tiger for joining us to give us some perspective on Jaden Daniels and where things are at with this Tigers team coming off their loss to Alabama. And we will see you guys in Baton Rouge for our rapid reaction. The last one was hot. And, definitely, hopefully, I mean, hey, maybe at the very least, I know Florida fans are hoping for as a competitive game as that was. And maybe if it comes down to
listen,
like that.
2020, we sat here and we were like, man, Florida's going to thrash LSU in the swamp. Didn't happen. Like, probably 2021, Florida was favored and should have won that game at LSU. Like, crazy stuff happens.
Yeah, it does. And we'll see how it goes. It's rivalry week, so you never know how it could play out, and things sometimes can get weird between Florida and LSU. Before we get out here, I want to encourage all Florida fans to go to rogueshop.com. If you have issues sleeping, chronic pain, and or anxiety and stress, Rogue Shop sells CBD, THC edibles, smokables, and vapes, as well as handcrafted bath salts, soaps, candles, and more. Rogue Shop is a true small business with 5 employees and make all of their products with their own cannabis grown in their manufacturing facility. Visit rogueshop.com. That's ROGUE shop.com. Nick, I will see you early tomorrow morning. We will be on the road to New Orleans, and we'll see what the Gators and Tigers have in store for us, my friend.
Love the food. Love this game. If you've never been to a Florida-LSU game, go hit it up.
And before we get out of here, shout out and thanks to Montrell Johnson for the NOLA recommendations that we got from him this week.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
He made sure he got us right. So definitely looking forward to it. We'll see you guys in Tiger Stadium on Saturday night to recap this matchup. For Nick Del Torre, I'm Zach Abolverdi.